Dear lovely, lovely YouTube watchers, thank you ever so much for being here. Theo Von, Donald Trump. I'm going to have a little look at the whole interview. Now, looking at this whole interview of what's happened here with Theo Von and Donald Trump, there are so many elements of this video. A lot of it is where they're not on the same wavelength. It is. A lot of it is where you can see Theo recognising that Donald Trump is really trying. I think Donald is really trying to be interested in Theo, but he seems to look at Theo more as an object of interest. You know, it's sort of like, well, who is this person that my son Barron spends so much time watching his YouTubes? Can you imagine how annoying that must have been for Donald Trump to discover that Theo Von was holding his son captive and entertaining? And I know Donald Trump is like a stand-up comedian. I know a lot of times he does use humour, but I wonder if there was a little bit of power dynamics in play here, that he wanted to show his son Barron, look, this person that you value and admire is still not as funny as me. Right? And I think if you look at the amount of times that Theo makes Donald laugh versus Donald making Theo laugh, Donald won. So let's have a little look, shall we?
Olinger would be tickled to know that one of her students is getting to sit down with a president today. So I just want to speak her name. She taught me to care about our country, and I still do.
Barbara Olinger, his 9th grade civic teacher. That was such a lovely thing for Theo to do. See, Theo is a Generation X, and Donald Trump is a boomer. And I think this is not just a clash of personalities, personality styles, communication styles, culture, class. It's a generational gap as well. There's a lot of gaps here between these two, and yet they've managed to find some common ground. They have.
Today's guest is the 45th president of the United States of America, and he's currently running for president on the Republican ticket. He's been an entrepreneur, a businessman, a television personality. We sat down at his club in Bedminster, New Jersey, and we want to thank the crew there for helping us make the production happen. He's one of the most famous people on earth, and I'm grateful for this chance to learn more about the man behind the headlines. Today's guest is Donald Trump.
For anyone, any Generation X out there who's ever had to deal with a boomer, you're about to see how a typical relationship plays out between Generation X and boomer. It's like they have to meet in the middle.
But your thing is going really great. My son's a big fan of yours, Barron.
Really, Barron is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
he just graduated high school, right?
That's right. He just did. He knows you very well. He said, Dad, he's big.
Wow.
Yeah, big one.
He doesn't answer the question or expand. Here's the thing. I've noticed so many things about this interview since I've been editing these. When you have to look at the question that's been asked and the answer that's been given, Donald takes a lot of control over this interview, and it takes Theo a while to recognise that Donald's not answering the questions that he wants him to answer. But considering this is the first time that Theo has interviewed anyone as high profile as Donald Trump or a president, you could see that he was out of his depth a little bit with Donald. Donald just said what he wanted to say. Really, Donald reacted a couple of times strangely in this one as well. Let me just have a little look at that. This is at the very beginning, where they're just getting the feel of each other. They're just getting to recognise how this conversation, communication is going to go. But the question that he's asked him is about Barron, and Donald's brought the conversation back round to talking about Theo.
But your thing is going really great. My son's a big fan of yours.
So your thing is going really great. So he mentions Theo. Theo's sitting there watching him like a hawk. Look, he's watching him. I honestly believe that Theo was thinking he was going to get some sort of to and fro from Donald Trump. Donald, from looking at this, is a really very difficult person to get close to, or he's just not used to it. He comes from that boomer generation. He's just self-absorbed, but he's really trying with Theo in this interview.
Barron.
Really, Barron is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
he just graduated high school, right?
That's right. He just did. He knows you very well.
Yep, he graduated high school. Back to you, Theo. He knows you very well. So it sounds like he's answering the question. He said he's just graduated, right? And normally that would lead into a little bit of talk about Barron, the subject matter of the question. No, not for Donald. Back to talking about Theo.
He said, Dad, he's big.
Wow.
Yeah, big one.
That's cool.
But clever, because he's done an impression of Barron. So it satisfied Theo a bit that they're talking about his conversation, right? That's his choice, talking about Barron. It's very, very clever.
That's good.
What,
Well, that's where it is nowadays, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I can't believe that we're able to get platforms. And I started in my kitchen, and then, just evolved out of there.
Donald, look, he's just tapping his fingers together. He's like confused now because he's changed the subject. Back to Theo talking about where he started from.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. What does Barron play?
Do you want to start? You go ahead.
Yeah, we're good. Are we rolling?
Yeah.
And here's Donald. Do you want to start? He's pulling his jacket up now. And all the way through this interview, you see Theo just messing about with his jacket, fidgeting about, really, really nervous and anxious. And now here's Donald taking control again, expecting Theo to do an intro. Doesn't happen. Watch this. Watch Donald's face.
Yeah, sure.
We're good. Yeah, that's does Barron play sports or anything?
He does. He plays golf and different sports, soccer. Loves soccer. Very good at soccer. He's a good athlete, Barron.
Yeah, we're able to get platforms, and I started in my kitchen, and then just evolved out of there.
That's fantastic.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable.
And Donald's got those little steeple fingers going on. It's almost like he's a little bit irritated with Theo because Theo's talking about himself again. And for Donald, that's why are you talking about yourself? I'm here to be interviewed. But it's always under the control of Donald Trump. He's happy to talk about himself when it's his choice.
What does Barron play?
Do you want to start? You go ahead.
Yeah, we're good. Are we rolling?
Yeah, sure.
We're good.
Do you want to start? Because I didn't come here to be interviewed about Barron. I came here to talk about myself.
Yeah, that's does Barron play sports or anything?
He does. He plays golf and different sports, soccer. Loves soccer. Very good at soccer. He's a good athlete, Barron.
Yeah. Is he going to go? Has he already picked a college or no?
He has, and he's getting set to go in the fall. Good college, a very good one. And he was always a very good student. He's smart guy.
That's great, isn't it? So he's answered him precisely, hasn't given him any extra information, just answered the question.
Which one of your kids, what's something you admire about each one of your sons?
Well, Don is a hunter. He's a great, great hunter and knows everything about that world and guns and all. He was the first one that said, Dad, boy, you got lucky because I didn't realize that 130 yards
Is actually very close. Theo's face is laughing at that. What does he think Donald is talking about? Dad, you got lucky. Because Donald didn't preempt that with his near assassination, right? The assassination attempt he didn't. But for some reason Theo is finding that really funny. You got lucky. I think he's thinking maybe generally, like you got lucky in your life, right? Is that right? Look at this.
and guns and all. He was the first one that said, Dad, boy, you got lucky because I didn't realize that 130 yards is actually very close in that parlance. And he said, you got lucky. He knew immediately when he saw that. He said, it's incredible because that's considered a pretty close distance.
From how far the shooter was?
Yeah.
From how far the shooter was, it's like Theo's just realised, oh, hold on, we're back to talking not about the question, because the question was something you admire about your sons, which Donald has answered about one of them, but now he's come back to talking about himself. So Theo's just adjusting himself. Oh, hold on, back to talking about Donald? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the guy wasn't a bad shooter, supposedly. You know, he was a very disturbed guy, but he wasn't a bad shooter. And Eric, likewise, he loves the business. He loves real estate. Also very much of a hunter and understands a lot of things about that. They were sort of, as young guys, they were with their grandfather, and he would take them hunting and
With their grandfather, he would take them hunting in Czechoslovakia. Now, is this something that he admires about both his sons then, that they're both good hunters? Is that what he's saying?
Czechoslovakia. and somehow they developed very well. And
Czechoslovakia,
yeah,
damn.
can you imagine?
It's a lot of letters even.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's the name you don't hear too much anymore. But it was.
I'd need a scope just to get through the spelling of that word.
That's right.
I think,
A lot of people.
Yeah.
But
And there's Theo trying to make Donald laugh, and he has actually got a smile on his face, which mainly through this interview he keeps a straight face. He manages to do that because Donald knows how serious all this is, all this interviewing pre-election, right? And Theo is trying to do what he normally does, which is make his guests laugh.
so he'd go. They'd spend time in Europe, and they'd do that. That's where he learned a lot about both of them. Really good.
With your dad, they would go?
With your dad, they would go. Okay, so he said to grandfather. Did he mean his grandfather?
No, grandfather, actually.
So his grandfather, Donald's grandfather.
They had a grandfather who was a wonderful.
And then he's talking about they had a grandfather who was wonderful. Is this the same person or two different people? What's happened here? He's got confused here about the relationship between this person that talked about outdoor stuff.
Outdoorsman and athlete. And during the summer, he'd take them out into the woods and they'd go hunting and lots of things, and they loved it. They got to love it. And that's Don, and that's...
Because if he's talking about the grandfather, then Theo was right and Donald's just been disagreeable for no reason. And I think it is back to control. He's controlling what's happening here.
Eric.
Yeah, they're funny.
Oh, yeah.
They have a good sense of humor, too. Like, whenever I see them at UFC, it's like...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just, like... The first time I was nervous, I think, and then after that, when I've seen them, it's like it's fun to kind of cut up with them a little bit.
Yeah, well, they're good.
So Theo's gone back to talking about himself. He's offered an example, trying to be empathic. Oh, yeah, I've seen your sons out at UFC fights. And Donald's taken back control to talk about his sons. Yeah, they're good guys.
They're good guys, and they really they get along great with the rest of the family. We all get along great. We have a good family.
And this is his opportunity to do all the positive speak and sell himself and his family. And he just makes these positive blanket statements. We have a good family. They get on with everyone in the rest of the family.
But I love USC. You talk about a great guy. How about Dana White?
Yeah.
The job he does, right?
You talk about a great guy. Did he say they were great guys? He said they were fun guys. And then Donald said they were great guys. Again, Donald is so in control of this interview, isn't he? And then he's dumped Dana White onto Theo, and Dana White's the person that got this interview together.
Yeah, I want to thank Dana too for helping get us set up together. Yeah, he makes it happen. I like Dana. He doesn't waste words. He doesn't waste time. He likes to, I think, be efficient, and he has seems like a strong sense of integrity for himself.
And here we go. Theo is now mirroring Donald in using all these positive descriptions of a person. So they seem to get in this pattern of let's mention a name, and now we're going to talk about what we like about that person and what's good about them.
Yeah, nobody like him, actually. It's, there's an expression that everybody is replaceable. Not Dana.
Yeah.
Nobody could do what he does, and he's made that sport into a big monster sport.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and we go there and we enjoy it, go with him. Sometimes we do walk-ons with Dana, and the place sort of likes it.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, but
there's
Dana,
a video
yeah,
of us. I was behind you in one video. I'm sure the dogs here will pull it up.
And look at him, Donald smiling. It's almost like through gritted teeth, that, isn't it? Because he was talking about Dana and the fights and how they do walk-ons, and Theo's stolen the conversation back to the attention to be talking about him and being behind him in a walk-on.
But yeah, those are some of my favorite things ever. UFC became my favorite sport during the pandemic because Dana was brave enough to stay open. He was
the whole ball game. He was the only sport, and he'd open up in arenas with nothing other than very good fighters.
Yeah.
And they would be fighting. He had some of the best fights during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, they both find this funny. They've found common ground talking about UFC and the fighters, and I don't think I've ever heard Theo laugh like that before. He sounded a bit like Scooby-Doo. Let's listen to that again.
He'd open up in arenas with nothing other than very good fighters.
Yeah.
And they would be fighting. Yeah.
See that noise? It's very good fighters with nothing other than very good fighters. And they're both finding this funny.
some of the best fights during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But he
it was
do that.
exceptional. There it is right there. See, look,
Oh,
there
yeah.
you are, and I'm right behind you there.
Oh,
clapping
wow.
with that hat on,
yeah.
the white guy in the
that's
hat.
great. That's right. The white guy in the hat is right. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of us there, but I was one of them for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, see, that's me right there.
Good sport, isn't it, huh?
Yeah, I'm a Dustin Poirier fan. So.
Oh, he's great. He was, boy, I tell you, he's a warrior. That last fight he had.
And now they're on a nice subject they're both comfortable with, not talking about either of themselves. And Donald seems very comfortable talking about these fights.
Whether you like it or not, he is a warrior.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt like he didn't get the victory, but it didn't feel like he lost.
No, he didn't lose that fight. He really, the man he was fighting was tough. He was tough and didn't expect that same fight. But he oftentimes will, he makes people suffer. There's no question about it. No, he's a pro. He's a professional.
Yeah, he's all heart. He's from Louisiana. That's where I'm from.
As that fight went along, he just got.
See, there's Theo dropping in another bit of information about himself as a way to try and get closer to Donald, to try and build a relationship. He's from Louisiana. That's where I'm from. Normally, that would, if you had a Generation X person sitting there, that would lead to conversation and talking about Louisiana. Not Donald. It's just a little bit of information that he might have taken in, I don't know, but he's just carried on talking. It's almost like it's nothing, it's just batting away a little bit of a gnat.
Got stronger and stronger, and he was getting pounded, and he was going to be choked out about 4 different times, and he just wouldn't let it happen. No, you say hello to him. He's good.
Yeah.
So you say hello to him. He's good. So he has registered what Theo said at the beginning, that he's a friend of his.
I'll make sure to.
He's a really great fighter. There
and he
is.
cooks Thanksgiving dinner every year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he cooks Thanksgiving dinner every year. Right, he cooks Thanksgiving dinner every year. A Generation X person would say, oh, does he? What does he make? Who does he invite? Where does he do that? A boomer says, oh, maybe I should go. Back to me.
Maybe I'll have to go sometime. Huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
He must do good food.
he does, yeah. He does some good stuff over there. Yeah, what was the first? Do you remember like the first fight that you ever went to, whether it was UFC or boxing or anything?
Yeah, I do. It was Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali in Madison Square Garden many, many years ago. And I think that was the first fight I went to. I always liked the boxing.
How old were you, remember?
Oh, boy, I don't know. You can deduct it from what I am now, but it was a long time ago.
Okay, so, and then Theo's finding that funny as well, because that is funny. That's Donald just casually telling Theo to do the work. You can deduct it from how old I am now. And it's true, you can just Google Wikipedia. The fight was in 1971, which would have made Donald 24. But it's the way he just casually gives the job to the person nearest to him, who happens to be Theo on interviewing him.
But they were 2 undefeated fighters. They were both undefeated. Muhammad became a friend of mine. So did Joe, Jolton Joe. They were 2 great fighters. That fight was incredible. I think they had like many heart attacks that night.
They had heart attacks that night. Now, this is an interesting takeaway from being at the biggest fight of 2 undefeated heavyweight boxers of the world, isn't it? The fact that there were heart attacks in the arena. This is what one of the things that Donald's remembered about it.
Literally heart attacks in Madison Square Garden. I think it was Madison Square Garden. And the fight was so unbelievable.
The fight was so unbelievable. Now, Theo's over here empathising about what heart attacks. People had heart attacks. And so Theo's over here, he's had his empathy triggered, right? Empathy mode's triggered over here for Generation X. You're talking to me about people that had heart attacks. What? And then, but Donald, as part of his flow, is talking about the fight. 2 undefeated
heavyweight champions of the world. There was no UFC and there was no competition, really. It was it.
Yeah.
And so you had 2 guys. Remember that Muhammad wasn't allowed to fight.
So he's having to explain these things to Theo, that he's assuming, or he thinks that Theo isn't going to know these things. He's just reminding him that there was nothing else. There was just that. There was no UFC, and then information about Muhammad Ali, and he couldn't fight. So he's educating Theo and he's giving him information. But Theo might know this information, but he doesn't know that. So he's having to give him all this extra information. And that's only a little bit of information that Donald Trump's got. Donald Trump's got Google up there in his head, right? But he's choosing to give this information to Theo.
Because of lots of different things. And He was a terrific guy. Both terrific guys, very
And they
different.
finally made it happen. They finally
and
made
they
that
made
bout
it happen. So they had two undefeated heavyweight champions fighting.
And who took you to the fight? You remember?
I went with my father.
Skilled Theo, who took you to the fight? So he's realised that Donald Trump could wax lyrical about that fight for probably another 20 minutes, right? But he's brought it back to him on a really grounded, down-to-earth, practical question. Do you remember who took you? He went with my father. And again, it's back to that personal element, trying to get close to Donald Trump, talking to him. I don't know, did Theo already know? Was Theo already aware that he went with his father?
Father and my brother Robert. And it was just, I don't know, I must have been very young. It was a long time ago, but you would
never forget it. Hold on. Do we think that all of these questions were written in advance so that Donald Trump got the opportunity to talk about his brother and alcoholism and addiction? Do we think that this has been set up in advance? I did get a feeling that Donald Trump is trying to get a message to Barron, honestly, and he's used Theo Fon to get it through because he knows that Barron watches Theo.
never forget it. That was one of those moments.
Oh, yeah.
But no, literally, there were like many heart attacks in the arena.
Just people having too much fun, or what do
No,
you
they
think
were
it was
just
drugs?
having heart attacks because it was such a crazy event.
Oh, yeah.
It was so, the people were just, I know a friend of mine, the father, he had a bad heart attack. Literally, they took him out. They were taking people out.
It's an early
It was,
KO.
and I don't hear that anymore. I mean,
And there's Theo's little joke. That was an early KO. They're carrying people out through heart attacks. Theo drops a little zinger in. Donald ignores him. He doesn't even break stride. He just carries on telling the story. He hasn't even noticed that Theo said anything.
there are other exciting sporting events. I don't think there's ever been, I don't know, I guess there has. But you would think Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, their first fight.
So he tried to say, he was about to say, and he stopped himself. He's realised, oh, I was about to say it's never happened anywhere since. And then he's realised that's a ridiculous thing to say because, of course, it's going to be happening somewhere.
Yeah. But it was a very exciting time.
Well, yeah, and just people being, I guess, yeah, sometimes our systems aren't ready to handle the amount of excitement that's going on, you know? Like, I think.
So Theo is now bringing the conversation back around to how people feel. Sometimes our systems aren't ready, meaning our bodies and he's going to talk about heart and feelings.
Like, yeah, maybe people just couldn't even handle so much joy. You think it was that people were just so excited.
They had heart attacks.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me just play that bit again. It's so funny. So he's talking about joy. Theo's like, oh, they got so excited. They talk about joy. He's trying to get to the bottom of how people felt about it. And Donald can't come up with the words. He hasn't got that. Just doesn't seem to have the vocabulary of talking about the feelings. So he just explains again what literally happened. And Theo finds that funny.
Like, I think, like, yeah, maybe people just couldn't even handle so much joy. You think it was that people were just so excited.
they had heart attacks.
Yeah.
I mean, they just had, I guess they do it, maybe Super Bowls or something.
Oh, people have heart attacks eating a thick soup, you know? So it's like, I'm not surprised that something so awesome like that would make your heart be like, yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, but I never
hear of it, you know. Yeah, it's just doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement or empathy about what Theo's just said. And he's made a little joke about eating thick soup. Donald hasn't, straight over his head.
we hear of it, you know, and I'm sure it happens. Just that one. But we had an exciting event the other night with Elon.
He's mentioned excitement twice. There's Donald looking at his phone, talking to Elon.
Elon Musk and me.
I listened.
We had a pretty big audience.
I listened, says Theo. But he did interrupt Donald. In fairness, that was a sentence Donald already started speaking. Theo interrupted. I listened. We had a pretty big audience for that one. Okay, so Theo's looking as if he's had the conversation subject taken away from him a bit there. He's looking a bit uncomfortable because Donald Trump has just changed the subject, hasn't he? He started talking about, I mean, it's sort of related. He's the master of the link. He has linked going to that giant Madison Square Garden, people having heart attacks, to the biggest audience with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. He's made the link so that he can come back and talk about himself again.
So that one, I can tell you.
Yeah, I listened for probably about like 20 minutes. I thought it was cool. It was, I
Listened for about 20 minutes. That's a little bit of... Theo's a little bit dismissive there, honestly. I listened to it for about 20 minutes. They went on for a couple of hours.
I think the tough part was just like just like it would have been neat if you guys could have been in the same spot, you know? But I still thought it was exceptional.
I heard the audio was great, and actually
I heard the audio was great, and actually they put out a clear tape of it. I think what he meant to say there was, I heard the audio wasn't great, but he's so used to speaking in positive terms, he's accidentally said the wrong words. Because Theo's saying it wasn't that clear, a little bit distorted, and then Donald's saying, yeah, they put out a clear tape after, but that's not what he said.
Out a clear tape of it, because they had clear tape.
Oh, nice.
They had so many millions and millions of people watching, like record numbers of people. And I'm trying to figure out, we're on a cell phone, or I was, and, you know.
He was on a cell phone. He doesn't know what Elon Musk was on.
That's a lot of people coming into a cell phone one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I heard some people had a problem with the audio. I don't know. I don't do that thing. You know, that was done. And we had a great conversation. It was for 2 hours and 15 minutes. They just put out a clear tape of it, a perfect tape of it. But yeah, I think I sounded somebody.
I think I'll go back and listen to it. It's Generation X trying to get him talking about himself again. No, he just bounced off the boomer. Yeah, I think I sounded still talking about himself. Doesn't even pause for a breath or look up.
Said your voice was distorted or something. And you know, I guess it happens. Look, it was such a big thing, such a big audience. But I would have loved to have seen the clear tape originally. They put it out right after the show, so now it's a clear tape where a perfect tape done there.
Yeah.
But when it goes through different phone systems and everything else, you think if we were together, that doesn't happen then?
So it's actually asking Theo a question. It's like the pen is sinking in that Theo said something that might be useful. Oh, he's asking him literally what he thinks about this technology issue that happened.
Because I think his voice was more clear than
maybe because he was the one who was like initiating the call. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure about how all that works. But yeah, I know that in post a lot of times they can tighten things up and make it better. You know, it's amazing how Elon like
in post they can tighten it up. Yeah. So he's asked him for what you think that's better, and then Theo's like, well, I don't really know, but maybe post can tighten up. He's not interested in what he's saying, and Donald's not really interested in either.
The cost to really have your own voice in the world is $44 billion, basically.
Yeah. Well,
if you want to have your voice, like, you know what I'm saying? He has his own channel.
And he does what he wants to do.
So Theo's accidentally made Donald laugh there. We're not really sure why Donald found that funny, that the cost of having your own voice is $44 billion. I don't really know why that's funny, because Theo's taking it deadly serious, that he's trying to get this point across. Because I think he's probably feeling a little bit frustrated at this point that Donald's not responding in the way that people normally do to Theo. But now he's on common ground again, talking about Elon, opportunity for Donald to say positive things about Elon Musk.
Yeah. And he's a fantastic guy, and he's a brilliant person, and the country should be very proud of him, actually. I have Truth, which has been very successful.
Truth Social, you mean?
Truth Social, yeah. And that's been very successful in getting my voice out. Well, I needed a voice because, you know, I was on Twitter and I was on... Here
you go. Donald's favourite subject. I did this, I did that, all about me. And you can hear Theo in his voice. He's just curt. Truth Social, you mean? He's given it its full title, as though Donald's saying, I've got truth on my side, which is not the same as having a social media platform called Truth Social, is it?
Instagram, I was on all of it, and I was on Facebook. And when you added it up, I was told by Zuckerberg and others, it was like record-setting type of numbers. And then one day I didn't have anything because they canceled. They canceled.
There's such a collusion there, right?
Yeah, it was a pretty bad thing. And so I had nothing.
Okay, there was a collusion there. It was a pretty bad thing. They're both agreeing on that. But Theo's sounding more annoyed as the interview goes on. Where are we now? 11 minutes in. And they're agreeing that there's something wrong with Donald Trump being cancelled on social media.
So after about a month, I have a lot of things to say. And after about a month, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just go out and put out an old public relations statement. You remember that? And although you're a little young to see it, but in the old days, you...
Here we go again. Donald looking at Theo. I think Theo's 44 now, He's not a youngster, even though he still looks like he's about 25. And Donald saying, in the old days, you're a little bit young yet. Now, that doesn't make sense either, does it? You're a little bit young yet. As if in another 20 years, is Theo going to be old enough to have learnt what a public relations statement is? It's a bit of time travel gone on there. Because he's not a little bit young yet, is he? He's not going to... 20 years isn't going to teach him about public relations statements. We're never going to go back to needing to use public relations statements, are we?
Put out a statement. And I did, and it was just gobbled up. It was really gobbled up, and I opened Truth, and Truth has become terrific, actually, for me.
Platform.
I really want just as a platform. I mean, it's more important than anything.
And there's Theo just getting it in. Platform, your platform, just as a reminder, people, it's not the Truth, it's just a platform called Truth Social.
Nelson.
Well, at least you have your voice then. You can say what you want to say.
Gave me my voice back, yeah. I had hundreds of millions of people. Even now, I haven't been too active on X, but I have, I guess, 90 some odd million people on it, but I was much higher than that when I was
it's like
actually
almost all the people.
It's like almost all the people. Theo's trying to take back some control. Donald's mentioned a number, 90 million people. Theo's trying, because Donald is not allowing Theo an equal amount of airtime here. And, maybe he shouldn't. It's just, I'm guessing Theo is used to having equal amount of chat and talk, because people that come on his podcast are just as interested about Theo as he is about them. Whereas in this situation, Donald Trump, not that interested in Theo. I don't think.
You know how many people there are.
Yeah, it's been, but I love the job he's done, and he's brought a certain voice back into.
There we go. Yeah, not really interested in what Theo just said. Something about the numbers, and he's like, okay, and then he's taken the conversation back to talk about what a good job Elon Musk has done.
Into play.
Yeah,
the previous people were terrible.
Yeah,
every time you do a thing, you'd be red flagged. They'd put up a red flag. Every statement you made, you'd be red flagged.
Yeah, it's almost like, it's like when you have a babysitter and they don't want to have any fun or whatever.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of the vibe I got. When you, because I see you at the fights.
Okay, so Theo's made a little joke and it's responded on Donald, but he's aware as well that it's probably inappropriate for him to be laughing at babysitter jokes. And Theo is used to people not getting his jokes. Now he's changed the subject. He's gone back to talking about the UFC.
See you, sometimes you'll sit right by Dana, and sometimes I'll sit, like me, I'll go with like David Spade sometimes as a close friend of mine.
Good.
And
And this is Theo. It's almost like recognition. Oh God, I'm talking about myself and he's not interested in hearing anything about me, even though Theo's desperately trying to use himself and what he knows about himself and what they've got in common to try and make some connection with Donald Trump.
I'll see you coming with Kid Rock and and you don't drink at the fights.
By the way, Kid Rock is he's terrific. He came to the convention. He knocked everybody out. He was fantastic. He's a great guy. He's just a great guy.
Mentioned Kid Rock, another lot of expressions of appreciation and positivity from Donald about Kid Rock. It's just a little bit strange to me that Theo mentioned you don't drink at the fight. It's almost like he was expecting Donald to pick that up and run with it. So I wonder how much of this is determined, like they've decided beforehand what they're going to talk about. But he's mentioned Kid Rock and Donald is choosing to wax lyrical about how good Kid Rock is before perhaps approaching the subject of alcohol.
He's popular, very popular.
Oh, he's a real dirt serpent too, dude. He's a freaking legend, He's a legend.
He is a legend, I guess, in a true sense.
Oh, 100%. People love him, dude. Look at him. I went to his show not long ago somewhere, and people, I think some guy had a heart attack there too, but it was more funnel cake.
And Donald actually found that funny that someone there had a heart attack at the Kid Rock show. I'm not sure why Donald found that funny, just somebody having a heart attack. Is he finding it funny because he realises that Theo's done the link? Funnel cake related,
I think, type of vibes.
He draws big crowds, actually. It's amazing.
And then Donald's gone back to being serious and waxing lyrical about Kid Rock again.
I saw he was out someplace recently at 80,000 people. He's big stuff, but he's forget about that.
Forget about that. I call him Bob. And then, and this is like Donald saying, look, he's big. Kid Rock is big. Look how big he is. And Theo's going, look how great he is. But not to Donald. To Donald, he just calls him Bob. So Donald is important enough to be able to be close to Kid Rock enough that he calls him Bob. And what is Donald trying to get at here? Is he trying to say that he brings down to ground level, like he's on an equal level, or is he trying to say that he's so important that he can just call him Bob? So what is going on here?
I call him Bob, his name Bob, right? It's Bob, Kid Rock, but it's Bob.
And he finds that funny. And Theo's not laughing. I don't know why Theo's not laughing. Is Theo not laughing because he's friends with Kid Rock? And he might be getting a sense that Donald is sort of being a little bit attacking on Kid Rock?
He's a really good guy. And
I've been over to his house
he's a cool
bunch.
cat, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I live in Nashville. Right when I got into town, he hit me up one night and was like, "Hey man, I'm having a birthday party this week, and you should come." And I didn't even know him.
See, Theo looks a little bit fed up now. He's having to, possibly feels like he's having to defend Kid Rock. Now, I don't think Donald Trump meant to do that. I don't think Donald Trump was meant to be making Kid Rock seem less important than Kid Rock by calling him Bob. I think Donald Trump was trying to be nice to Theo there, trying to be friendly with him, and Theo's a little bit defensive of Kid Rock here.
And it was nice of him. And since then, we've done a lot of fun stuff together. His
good.
brother's missing a leg, too, which is crazy. He looks like the lamp. Have you ever seen that movie, The Lamp, like from like a Christmas Story or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's fantastic. The family, the father, I knew very well. He just passed.
Okay, so then Donald Trump, did you notice he pulled his jacket in? He's pulled his jacket because he's realised that Theo is not behaving in a way that he was expecting. So he wasn't expecting Theo to be straight face, and then Theo must have picked up on that because Theo's the sensitive one of the two, I'm sure. So Theo has tried to lighten the mood by this little joke, and they've both appreciated that. But now Donald's gone back to a serious subject again of he just passed away. And I think what could be missing here, the gap, is whether or not they're supposed to be funny and laughing, or how serious they're supposed to be making it, because they seem to be jumping from really light-hearted, funny things to laugh at to very serious, let's talk about somebody dying now.
Away. And it was tough.
Well, you knew his dad.
For the brother. I did. And he was fantastic.
Yeah.
I got to know him through knowing Bob. And I tell you what, it's just a fantastic family, the whole family.
Yeah. No, I love Bob. He and I joke around together a lot. We've spent a lot of time together. Look at his brother right there.
That's right.
The dude hits
And you know what? He
dingers,
plays
too.
golf, and he plays well. He hit a perfect drive with me. I said, "Do you play?" We were on the 17th hole.
Now Donald's brought the story back to him. So yeah, he's talking about Kid Rock's brother, Bob's brother. But somehow this story is still about Donald.
I said, "Do you play?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Oh, really? You want to hit a shot?" And he said, "Okay." And he got up. Well, it was very hard for him to put it was really a tough situation because he has to get the ball in the ground and the tee and everything else. Nobody did it for him. And he did it. I mean, he goes to the ground and he did it, gets up. He swung. And I'm a good golfer. He hit a perfect shot out to the right with a little hook. Nobody knows what that means in your audience probably, but that's
A little bit condescending there, isn't it? Nobody knows what that means in your audience, probably. Meaning that Theo's audience are not golfing types. It's a little bit stereotypical. And is this what's happening here? He's got the idea of who he thinks Theo Von's audience are, and none of them are going to play golf or know what he's talking about. Which is a little bit condescending, isn't it?
It's like a perfect shot. And I said, "That is perfect." He said, "I'll do it again." I said, "Don't do it again because you'll never be able to hit a shot that good." And it was really amazing.
Don't do it again. You'll never be able to hit a shot that good again. So it's Donald telling the story of how he told Kid Rock's brother what to do. Do you see what happens there? This was Kid Rock's brother having a moment there, having a brilliant moment with his golf. And somehow Donald has managed to keep maintain the focus on the words that he used and what he said. And listen to Theo's reply.
He's great. And Bob really...
He'll do it again, too.
They
He's a
love the
repeat
family.
offender. They're great.
He'll do it again too. He's a repeat offender, he said, which is really funny because Donald's just completely ignored it, started talking about what a great family they are, great family. This is his go-to, taking back control. Let's just talk positive words about whoever it is we're talking about. He's a repeat offender. He'll do it again too. And what's funny about that is he's a repeat offender, as in he's going to go against something Donald Trump has just told him to do.
We have an amazing family. They
Oh, no,
love the
Bob's
family.
great. I've been to parties at his house. You know, one thing that's really nice about him is I'll go do something with him, and then like a few days later, he'll send a nice note, or he'll send like a photo, like a frame photo,
Not
and just say,
surprised.
"Hey, man, I had a nice time."
Yeah.
And Theo's getting a little bit disheartened with this idea that he knows Donald isn't that interested in that. Because whenever he says anything like a story, nothing comes back. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I noticed at the events you don't drink, and you don't drink or smoke, right?
I noticed at the events you don't drink or smoke. And so I wonder if this is a pre-question that Donald's asked him to ask or something. That's what they've agreed, because that's twice he's had to ask that question now. That's the second time he said, you don't drink, right?
I don't drink or smoke. No,
You never have.
No, I never have. I had a great brother who taught me a lesson. Don't drink.
Theo knows that Donald Trump's never drank. You've never drunk, he says. And he's saying that his brother told him don't drink, and he listened to him.
Don't drink. And he said don't smoke. He smoked and he drank, and he was a great guy. He was a very handsome guy.
Is he older? He was older.
Quite a bit older, yeah. And he had a problem with alcohol and smoke a lot. But, I tell people, no drugs, no drinking, no cigarettes.
Yeah.
I tell people, he's used to telling people what to do.
I tell that to my kids all the time. I'd say no drugs, no drinking, no smoke. And
It was tough.
he'd always.
It was tough. Theo tried to speak there. It was tough. But he's talked over him again.
Tell me, he'd say never. So he was, really old enough that you would look up to somebody, and I'd look up to him anyway.
Did you admire him?
Yeah, I admired a lot, so much.
Did you admire him? You looked up to him. Did you admire him? Theo's got to the point where he's shuffling about in his seat now. That jacket is starting to feel uncomfortable.
About him, he had so much going. He had the look. He
What was
had
his name?
Unbelievable personality.
What was his name? And Donald just carries on talking as if he hasn't said anything.
Like an incredible personality.
What was his name, Donald?
His name was.
What was his name? Donald. And he's used his name as that important. Notice I'm saying your name. It's something important I'm saying here to get his attention. And then he's answered while he's shuffling about in his seat.
Fred Trump. And he had a problem with alcohol. He got addicted to it because they say alcohol is tougher than drugs to get off of. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I'm in recovery, actually. I've been in recovery.
Theo sounds so bored that he's got to start talking about this again. He's like, could Donald Trump not have just done a little bit of research or found out what 50% of Theo Von's podcasts are about? He looks so fed up and dejected. It's like he's realised, I've got to talk about myself again, and I'm not getting anywhere with Donald Trump. He's not talking about himself.
So, like most of the last 10 years.
From alcohol?
From drugs and alcohol.
So which is worse?
For me, drugs is the problem, but if I have a drink, then it's tougher for me to prevent myself from getting.
It sets off a chain.
Yeah.
Sets off a chain. And Donald actually appears to be really interested in this, maybe because he's had a brother who's died from, the effects of alcoholism, and he's really interested in it. It sounds like he's interested in, he wants to know that there's nothing you can do about being an alcoholic. He wants to know that his brother didn't have a choice.
But which is harder to quit? I've heard alcohol is harder to quit than drugs.
And I think, it must be really, really difficult if you've lost someone through alcoholism. He wants to know, looks like, that alcohol is the hardest thing to stop doing.
If that makes sense. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine because it's probably more readily available.
More readily. Well, and it's social, and you sit.
I can only imagine. What does he mean, he can only imagine? Theo's given up drink and drugs, hasn't he? So surely he does know which one's harder to give up.
Sitting and everyone's drinking and all.
Yeah, rarely do you go to a dinner and everybody's eating Xanaxes or something, for appetizers. Usually people are having like a mint, a mint julep or something a little fancier, Negroni I just learned about.
Right.
And here we go. Donald's actually laughing at his little jokes But Theo is managing to avoid the subject. She's taken a swerve, he's taken a deflection, and he's gone back to his old, I'm going to use comedy here to avoid these uncomfortable feelings, whatever's going on there.
But yeah.
So you have a problem with that then?
Yeah.
But Donald's not letting it go. Donald is too experienced to know, oh, hold on a minute, he didn't answer my question. So he's been more direct. And now Theo's in serious mode here. Now they're actually finally matching. Theo is in a worse feeling state than Donald is, I think, at this stage, looking at him.
Oh, wow.
I've had, it's been in my family. My family, it's like, yeah.
Can you stay away from it?
Yeah, I've done.
Can you stay away from it? Oh, big sigh. Theo's like, no, I don't want to talk about this. I want to ask you about you. I want to talk about what I'm here to find out about. But no, he's got to talk about himself again. And it's not by choice. This is how this is looking to me. Obviously he's got a choice, but it looks like Donald is taking control and asking him the questions now, and Theo's aware of that, and he's a Generation X. What's he going to do? He's got a kind of a strategy. How many words is he going to use? How long is he going to talk for? How much is he going to let Donald taking control of the interview? Is he going to allow?
A good job. I mean,
so how long have you been off?
I go to recovery meetings. I've been off most recently a little over 2 years.
Do you ever go back on?
Yeah, I've had stints where I go back on
and you don't control it.
It's tough. It goes.
And you don't control it, and there it is. You don't control it. You don't control it. I think that is what a lot of this is about. It's control. And Theo's realising, hold on, why is he talking about control? Have I got to control this interview?
Goes downhill
no
pretty
kidding.
quick.
So
you think it's going to be easy?
You think you're controlling it?
You think you're controlling it? I think he's talking about himself here, honestly. Theo thinks he's controlling his interview. No, but I think Theo is aware that he's not controlling the interview.
And then you're you're doing go-kart and racing with hookers and stuff. It gets bad.
Just not to do it.
And then you're doing go-kart racing with hookers. It gets bad. Donald Trump hasn't even registered what he said. Whether he's heard what he said, don't know. He's just talking over him, and he's carried on telling him what you've got to do. The only thing is just not to do it, right?
Right. So then in the end, you're like, I have to not do it. Did you see, like, with your brother?
There we go. Theo's managed to expertly bring that back round to trying to talk about Donald Trump's brother again.
Could you see it or anything? Like, man.
I was amazed because he had so much going, had everything going. I think it happened in college at a fraternity maybe, or I don't know, somewhere along the line it happened. And
it happened that he took up drinking, like as if it was an event that just happened.
All of a sudden, this is not unique. This is a very common story, unfortunately. But and then the family would see it and start to notice it, and it didn't get better. It didn't get better. I was amazed. He lived for so long in bad conditions. In terms of, I was amazed that his body could hold out. It held out, and it had bad moments. But his body was unbelievably strong that it could withstand this.
Yeah, it's a body. Your body's just so resilient.
Yeah.
Bodies are so resilient. So Donald's talking about his brother and what he remembers. Theo hasn't picked up that Donald's feeling something about that memory. Theo's trying to take control back. Bodies are so resilient, so he takes it out vague. Yeah, vaguely, generally, bodies are so resilient.
Do you remember the last time that you saw him or spent with him?
I do, and
I'm sorry to ask you about it. Is it all right?
Yeah, no, it's
And then he's realised, hold on, he's gone too far. Theo's gone right in. The last time you saw him, which is obviously deeply emotional and the most painful. So he's gone from one extreme to another. He's gone from, bodies, they're resilient, to, do you remember the last time you saw him? He's jumped in with something really meaningful.
The reason it's good talking about it is it might help other people. If it helps one other person, it's worth the conversation. Frankly.
We talk about that stuff a lot on our podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so Donald's saying if it helps one other person, frankly, it's worth the conversation. And then Theo's taken it back. I think Theo's rescuing here. He's seen that Donald's feeling something, and then Theo's rescuing him by talking back vaguely. Or we talk about it on our podcast, so it's not about him, it's about we, and things they talk about on the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of our audience struggles or has struggled with alcoholism, addiction, intimacy disorders, all types of stuff, you know? So it's like it's pretty kind of normal conversation. But,
You know, the interesting thing is, and I tell people, so I never had a cigarette.
Hold on a minute. So he's rescued him, and now Donald's gone back to, I've never had a cigarette and I've never had an alcohol. What did Donald say about the last time he spoke to him? Did he not answer the question? Is that what happened? Hold on.
Stand this.
yeah, it's a body. Why is it so resilient?
Yeah.
Do you remember the last time that you saw him or spent with him?
I do, and
I'm sorry to ask you about it. Is it all
yeah,
right?
no, it's well, you know, the reason it's good talking about it is it might help other people. If it helps one other person, it's worth the conversation.
Okay, so he didn't answer. He didn't answer the question. And Theo reeled it back, realised he'd gone too far, and then saves him by going back to talking about the podcast and the sort of things they talk about on the podcast. And then Donald remembers what it is he wanted to say and never had a glass of alcohol. And I honestly believe that he's on there to give this message to Barron.
I never had a glass of alcohol. Never, ever did I have a glass of alcohol because of him. And I would say that if I did drink, I could, you know, conceivably be the type of
Could happen to you.
personality that would have,
Yeah.
like you, that would have a problem.
I could be the sort of personality like you that would have a problem.
But I never had, and the only thing I say to people is, if too late for the people that you're talking about, but if you don't drink, you don't miss it. I mean, I don't even think about alcohol or
Right. It's not a
anything.
part of your world.
I don't think about cigarettes. I don't think about any of that. If you don't take drugs or if you don't have alcohol, it's real easy not to drink it. It's when I had a friend who went.
Sort of stating the obvious, really, isn't it? He's like saying, that's really quite funny. He's saying, people you're talking about, it's too late for them. That is really, you know. Yeah, thanks, Donald.
To the Wharton School of Finance with me. He was a very smart guy.
Where is it, Wharton School?
That's in Philadelphia. That's at Penn.
Oh, yeah. Rocky.
Right. And it's a great school, great business school. And it's part of the University of Pennsylvania, the business school.
Oh, it's nice down there.
Yeah.
And then Theo's going too far the other way, rescuing. Oh, yeah, he's mentioned a building and a place. And Theo's got a friend's brother who went there or something. And he's falling back into that pattern. Normally he comes up with a funny story here.
My friend's brother went there or something.
Well,
We ate near there
then he
once.
was smart.
We ate near there once. We ate near there once. That's so funny, isn't it? Donald Trump is trying to do a story about Wharton Business School. And Theo's randomly interjecting with, we ate near there once.
Smart because it's a great school.
At,
But this person that I met, he hated the taste of scotch.
Hated the taste of scotch. Donald is talking over Theo. He's not interested in what he just said. I've got no idea what he just said because I can't catch up with the words. If anyone knows what Theo was just trying to say there, let me know.
Hated it. Couldn't stand it. But he insisted on having it because he felt it was important to be able to drink. I said, no, just don't drink. He said, you know, to be successful in business, you have to sort of interact and you have to drink. And I said, don't do it. Anyway, he became an unbelievable alcoholic, uncontrollable alcoholic.
oh, I thought you meant like one of the
died.
best.
Yeah.
He became an alcoholic, an unbelievable alcoholic. And Theo says, oh, I think like one of the best.
And he died. He was but he hated the taste of scotch.
And he still
And then
did
he
it.
couldn't live
And he's still drinking it. And Theo looks a little bit fed up at this stage that he's lost Donald.
without it.
Wow.
Literally.
Well, I think I notice a lot of like in the recovery rooms and stuff, it's a lot of people that they're missing something inside of them.
So then he tries to explain to Donald his experience of what happens in the recovery rooms, which again is a mismatch. It's not what Donald was talking about. Donald was talking about somebody that's got such bad alcoholism they died of it. But now Theo is coming back to ground that he's familiar with. And Donald is just looking puzzled at Theo. The pair of them spend most of this interview just looking puzzled at each other because they're just not finding that same wavelength, are they?
And so they
Could be.
they take on like, you know, so they want to try and fill it up with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the last time you spent with your brother?
I do. And
And he's asked him the question again. Do you remember the last time you spent with your brother? Okay, so we've gone round the houses. Theo now feels that Donald's able to answer that question. He's asked it again, because it's a lot to ask somebody the same question twice, isn't it? It really is like saying, you didn't answer my question. And I don't know if Theo's noticed that or somebody else has fed that into them. I don't know.
He'd have periods where he'd get sick, very sick, and we thought we'd lose him or we lost him. Then he'd get better. And that happened 5 or 6 times. I mean, where you thought you lost him, and then he got better. And it was amazing. I mean, he was, certainly very strong in that sense.
Even talking about his brother dying, his brother was very, very strong and resilient in that his body held out. But again, we're not talking about personal terms here, are we? He's not saying, yeah, I can remember it was a Tuesday afternoon and I held his hand and he looked at me and he said, or anything really personal. He's just talking about vaguely what happened at the end, right?
And I just tell people it's so tragic. Don't drink. Just don't drink.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have a problem. Like even you, if you didn't drink, you would never, but you probably, maybe you wouldn't be successful.
If you didn't drink, maybe you wouldn't be successful like you are. Is he attributing part of Theo's success to the fact that he can talk about his recovery?
Like you are, it's part of your story, right?
It's helped me a lot.
It's part of your story. Theo's like, it's helped me a lot, meaning he's just given Donald the benefit of the doubt there. It's helped me a lot giving it up, is what Theo's meaning there, I'm sure. But look at the confusion on his face. And this is the two of them are just looking at each other like, I don't know what you're talking about. But he's answering the question that he wanted to hear.
Yeah, because I don't know what would happen probably. I think it's just too risky.
It is risky.
What's something that you...
I think it's too risky. So again, he's answered his own question that hasn't been asked. The reason why he doesn't drink, his answer, I think it's too risky. And Donald's agreeing, I think it's too risky. And then he tries to get back to talking about something Donald might have a feeling about. What's something that you miss about him?
miss about him, or like that? Like what's something that you miss about him, Fred?
Well, he was wise in a sense. I mean, think of it. He's got this problem, and it was very important for him to convey to me not to have this problem. And I couldn't have been successful if I had that problem.
Yeah.
Back to talking about me. It's great.